Hi there, guys. This is the TBK podcast. I'm your host, David, and I'm joined today by Rash. And we're gonna chop up the Crawford Porter WBO welterweight matchup coming up on Saturday night, Sunday morning. And boy, it's a big one to look forward to. Crawford has finally got a PBC fighter ready to face him. So Rash, give me your thoughts on this, man.
Yeah, it's taken a long time for this fight to happen, because I know a couple, was it like last year or whenever the fight was kind of ordered, and then it was looking like the fight wasn't going to happen. I think Crawford didn't really want to fight Porter. I think because they were kind of like friendly, Crawford didn't really want to fight him. I think Crawford kind of needs that like animosity in his fights. He likes to have a bit of needle between him and his opponents. But I think it's a really good fight, man, because Crawford's been relatively untested since moving up to welterweight. He's fought decent fighters, but he's not fought anyone within that kind of top 5 range. So I feel how I see the fight going is I feel like Porter's going to try jump on him early, and I feel like he'll have some early success. So I think Crawford will probably get at least stunned in the first 4 or 5 rounds, but then I think Crawford will do as Crawford does. He'll adjust, he'll adapt, and he'll start picking him off. And I think the boxing IQ will start to really become clear that down the line. Even though we rarely see Porter get tired, but I just feel like the IQ is just going to be different for him. You understand what I'm trying to
say? Yeah, definitely. Okay, yeah, because I watched a couple of things, and from what I'm gathering, or from what I see anyway, Sean Porter's fought like one way his whole career, even as an amateur. And his dad's trying to say that he don't focus on other fighters because he knows what his son's going to do, and he's going to make sure his son is at his optimum. But Bomac and Bud are talking about like this has been the most intense camp they've had ever. Okay, right. You know what I mean? And for me, I think as you hit it pretty much spot on, the IQ is going to come through from Bud, because we know that he's not a straight line fighter, but at the same time, he is pretty one-dimensional in terms of game plan. And I think with Bud, he's shown from 135 all the way up.
Diversity, you can do this.
The versatility, yeah, man. Yeah. And I know there's a lot of people that are wishing for a Crawford win. Not a Crawford win. A lot of people are wishing for a Porter, and that's exactly what it'll be an upset. But I think most of the reason why is because I think once he's got this first PBC fighter out of the way, there's no real hiding place for anybody else. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Because a lot of people they just don't like Crawford because they feel like he's a hype job. He hasn't really fought anyone, but then I feel like he's tried to make some of these fights that people want to see, and the opponents have been kind of unwilling to get in there with him. I know that he wanted to fight Manny Pacquiao, and there's this whole confusion of Bob saying, "Oh yeah, Manny's not ready." He doesn't want Crawford to fight Manny because Crawford's going to hurt him, and even Freddie Roach is saying it's a bad style. But then it turned into, "Oh, Crawford wasn't ready for Manny." Blah 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 blah. And then it was obviously the infamous Spence thing, where he was calling out Spence for a while. Spence had this excuse, that excuse, but then it got to the stage where Spence was saying 60-40, Crawford's like, no, like, even though Spence had more belts than him and whatnot. So I feel like a lot of people, there's a question mark over Porter now, because it's been so long since Crawford's there's been a question mark over Crawford, because it's been so long since he's kind of fought someone where people regard quite highly. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Which, well, I know you're going to understand what I'm saying, but it's all down on Crawford this weekend to actually make a statement, man. I think he needs to make a statement. Even if he wins a close fight, I feel like people are going to be like, "Oh, see, he's not really that good," blah 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 blah. But if he goes down and then wins and puts a stamp on the W, then no one's got anything else to say, because a lot of the time Sean Porter's losses have looked close. Yeah. Even though I think watching back the Carl Brook fight was a bit of a wash when I watch it back, but it looked close at the time. When I watched it live, I had Sean Porter winning. But then when I watched it back, I was like, no, it wasn't. No,
it wasn't. You know I think the moment Kell Brook started turning him around, once he got to grips with his physicality and actually started imposing his own, he took over that fight completely. But the thing is, again, at the time of watching the fight, I actually had Brook winning, but then you got to remember, like, it's about the commentary as well. And if people listen to it in American commentary, they would have probably had Porter winning.
Yeah, and you know what it was? I remember someone in the WhatsApp group was trying to say that Porter was trying to make it look like he was winning without winning, and then at the time I was like, that sounds stupid, but it made sense. Like a couple of years later, I was like, yeah, that's what he was trying to do. He looked like he was doing shit because he was throwing punches and he was coming forward and this and that, but he wasn't doing that. He just kept getting tied up, like spun around, and then getting cut, then getting caught coming in with right hands. You know what I'm saying? So,
and it happened often.
Yeah, and it was kind of like the same with Furman, where he would come in and Furman would just catch him with a nice left hook or a right hand. It wasn't as much holding, and he gave Furman a lot more problems. I think that fight was a lot closer. But I think Furman just kind of he out-hustled him just by Porter just coming in recklessly. Yeah,
and the thing is, again, as well, Foreman's a very slick fighter too, and I think that told as well, because Porter can look a bit reckless sometimes. And I think in that fight he did look a bit reckless, especially when he was getting picked off.
Yeah.
The way he was by Furman as well. And then even if if we had to hit the Spence fight, I mean, it was nip and tuck until he got dropped in the 11th. That's the thing
with the Spence fight, and again, it's Spence's fault, but apparently Spence wasn't properly training for that fight. He ballooned up to like 190 or something, and this, that, and the other. So I again, this is on Spence, but I don't think he fought the best Spence. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Because apparently Spence was overlooking him, and then obviously the crash happened. Was it after that fight the crash happened?
It was after, yeah.
Yeah. So it shows what frame of mind Spence was in around that time. And again, I'm not trying to take anything away, because that's all on Errol Spence. But I feel like if Spence was a bit more switched on, like how he was with the Brook fight and like that, I feel like he would have done a better job. But Porter really showed out that night, man. He came, like, a lot of people thought he was going to get stopped and watched, and he came out and he fought to a good decision. And he fought to a good decision loss, man, and he did everything he could. So there's no shame in that, because Errol Spence is meant to be one of the, or if not the best 147 pounder at the moment. But what attributes do you think this is really going to bother Crawford from Porter?
Well, the thing is, I mean, he's gonna do what he does, and again, for me, forgive me going around in circles a little bit or going around the houses, but I think Crawford is a bit like what we saw of Canelo a couple of weeks ago, a bit like what we always saw from Floyd, and that is he'll do the feel out rounds, and then you see the IQ coming into play, and then he'll start turning it to his favor. And I think he's going to get rushed, clearly, because that's just Sean Porter's style. But I think he's going to start using his range, and he's going to start using his footwork a lot earlier than I think people expect.
Sure.
Because and the reason why I reckon is because he doesn't want, you've already alluded to it as well, he doesn't want what has happened with Furman and Spence to be the same thing with him, which is a really close fight with Sean Porter. And he's not underestimating Porter's skills. I mean, they said in the press conference yesterday, they both said that they what they think they're best at, and or what they think each other is best at, but they're going to do it better. Sean Porter said, "I believe that everything Terence can do, I'm going to do better than him." And Crawford said the same thing. But the thing is, Porter hasn't really shown that he has the same level of skill or the IQ that Crawford has. So I think for me, you alluded to the fact that he lacks a bit of needle going into fights, and Porter alluded to that, saying, we know that mentally we can get into him, and I think Crawford wants to keep up a little bit of animosity so he can go into that ring and really mean business on the night. And I personally think he will start a lot earlier than expected, just because of that. I mean, we saw it with Amir Khan. He took away like everyone was talking about how fast Amir Khan was, took away Amir Khan's speed within a minute. Everyone spoke about Brooks' physicality. You know what I mean? He took that away from him within a round or two. Like, I think it was the second round. As soon as he went southpaw, that was it. Yeah. And I think with Porter, he will take away Porter's physicality a lot quicker than expected as well.
Do you know what? I think the way he's been talking is like he wants to kind of meet Porter in the center, kind of match him, and it's a bit like that. That kind of worries me a little bit because you go back to Crawford's fight against was it Felix Diaz? Who kind of fights a little bit similar to Porter. He was a decent fighter because he won. He was Olympic gold medalist. I think he was Cuban or somewhere along those lines. But he was giving Crawford a bit of a hard time for like maybe the first 4 or 5 rounds. He was catching him off guard and whatnot, catching him going back in straight lines. But again, it's like I'm saying, it's that whole thing where Crawford's mind just kind of he clocks onto what you're doing, and he's like, okay, cool. Like he'll make those adjustments like mid fight and everything. But I feel like Porter's foot speed as well, I think he's quite underrated. He's got very fast feet, and he's good at jumping in and lunging in. Again, the timing will beat that, but until he gets that timing, I think that's what's going to be really troubling him as well. That foot speed and obviously the physicality and the bum rushing is gonna throw him off. But so if he tries to stand there and slug it out with him, I think Crawford hits harder than Sean Porter, but from a certain range. I don't feel like he hits harder in close. I feel like when he times his shots and he picks his shots and whatnot, that's when he hits harder. But also, I just feel like Crawford's one of the best finishers in boxing at the moment. The way when he gets you hurt, he gets you out of there. 9 times out of 10, he's going to get you out of there. Do you know what I'm saying? So I feel like a lot of the time, like even with Errol Spence, these guys haven't been able. They've hurt Porter a couple of times, but they've not been able to put it together to finish him. So it'll be interesting to see if Crawford can really put it together to finish on Porter.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. But what I do think though is that Crawford's going to wash Porter. I don't believe that, but what I do believe is that when he makes the adjustments, because inevitably he will, we've seen that he can make the adjustments, but we've never seen Porter necessarily make an adjustment. We've just seen him keep on going.
Yeah. He does the same thing. He's just consistent with what he does. I do believe with Crawford's IQ, he's going to need a bit more than just to keep on going. He's going to need to show some adaptability, some adjustment, and I don't see that if Crawford gets into a flow, I just don't see how Porter takes away his best weapons. You know what I mean? But I'm happy that we finally got a good welterweight opponent. Not that he's not had good welterweight opponents, but we've got like a top end PBC opponent. Yeah, definitely. For Bud at 147, because it's what he's been calling for since he got into the division. Yeah, definitely. It's a shame it's taken this long to happen, but at least it's here now we get to see what it's about. You know what I'm saying? So and it's also a shame it has to be mandated. But I was going to say, to me, it's way more important for I like both of these guys. You know what I'm saying? But it's way more important for Crawford to win this fight because I can't take Kieran. Crawford was just a hype job. He's just this, he's just that. You know what I'm saying? So with Porter, we know what he's about. You know what I'm saying? We know he comes to fight. We know he's going to push you to your limits and whatever. But with Bud, it's like because he's got that question mark over him. I want to see him do well. Do you know what I'm saying? I want to see him actually win, and I don't want to hear, you always see he was shit anyway. He was this, he was that. Like, nah, man. I want him to be the guy in it. So not to sound like too much of a fanboy, but I just that's not how I want to see him go out. You know what I'm saying? So,
no, facts. I mean, to be honest with you, he's earning it as well because he's been calling for it ever since he got into the division. Do you know what I mean? Let's not take that away from him. There might be question marks about who's been moving how on certain things, but we cannot deny that he's been calling for the whole PBC stable since he come into the division. And absolutely. At least now he's getting somebody who's game. We can finally see if he can put his money where his mouth is, so to speak, or put up or shut up. So as you've heard thoughts from Rash and myself, we're hoping for a proper barnstormer, which is what we normally get when Porter fights, and we know we get great goods when Bud puts his hands up as well. We're gonna make sure that we come back on the other side after the fight. But for now, this has been the TBK podcast. I've been your host, David, joined by Rash. We out.